Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome. So glad to see you. My name is Katie Gideon. I will be the on-camera facilitator for this event, dialing in from Edinburgh, Scotland. So glad to be here. And I want to give a huge shout out to my co-facilitator, Maya. Joined stateside. You'll see her in the chat. But super excited for the weekend crowd when it comes to the weekly setups. I love seeing all of our returning socialers. It's greeting all the best friends for our accountability buddies as we set up our week for this week. So welcome. Would like to know in the chat, just double check that if you want to share with the larger Sonder fam, it is set to everyone. And if it just says host and panelists, that comes to just myself and Maya. You're always free to use that, but usually you want kind of everybody else's thoughts and opinions, not just mine and Maya's. But we're glad that you're here. If this is your first social, we would love to see that in the chat. Or if this is your first social in a while, we've kind of hit that time where I feel like people have kind of maybe taken a little bit of break, come back as we move into kind of the spring and summer. I'm biased because I'm a summer person, so I always get excited about spring because spring means summer. Margie, welcome. Always glad to have everybody back. And then yeah, Donna, like I said, that little kind of niche of folks, we always are so glad to have you back. I think Maya always said it best as we're a little bit like a river. Um, in all the metaphors, in a sense that we are always going to be here and you can come hang out, you can dip a toe in, you can, I was going to say in kind of country fashion, you can grab your inflatable tube and float with us for a while, or you can walk away, take a break, go camping, go hiking, go to the beach, and then come back and join us. So we will always be here. And if we're not, the YouTube videos will always be here as well. But we're glad that you have come exactly as you are, and we are ready to get started. As always, this can be a little bit of a sensory overload. There's going to be music. I'm going to be talking. You can mute me. You can mute the music. There's going to be slide examples, but don't worry, we can always go back to slides. So definitely get your phone handy, or if you're on your computer, whatever snippet, grab it tool, all those things, have it ready to go. And then, as always, be kind and courteous to yourself or others. No promotions or spam. Respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Limit repetitive product and accessory questions. And why Maya and I have some information, we will usually recommend contacting hello@silkandsonder.com for any of those specific customer care inquiries. And as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you're responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. Nothing makes me happier than seeing in the chat that someone really needs this or they've been looking forward to it all day. And I love that it can be kind of independent of whatever chaos is in your life, whatever is happening in the outside world. We were able to kind of come in with our wonderful little Sonder fam, digital family, online family, and just be there to celebrate the wins, kind of acknowledge maybe some of those harder spots. But we are so glad that you've come again, exactly as you are. And there's no one grading. There are no due dates on these journals. So you can do as much or as little as you want. You can participate in the chat as much or as little as you want. Just exactly take what you need from these in whatever capacity, because we're just glad that you're here and we're glad that you've set aside this time to focus on whatever healthcare journey, self-care journey you are on. So we are still halfway through April, and so we are still exploring the idea of authenticity. And I love, again, the alliteration of an April, authenticity. So already a sucker for that, but man, authenticity has been a tricky word to say, but also a tricky theme to navigate. And I also kind of felt as I was going through this, I just got back from a work conference, so the imposter syndrome, totally real. And I feel like that tied very, very closely to authenticity and authentic self. And then I realized that I was kind of making excuses for myself, just in a sense of, well, I don't belong here because I'm not old enough, or I don't have the technical experience, or that's not my area of expertise. And so I came across this quote, and I feel like it was just kind of that like aha moment of, you don't have to be ready, you just have to be brave. Because I feel like there have been so many times that I've said, well, I won't do that yet because I need to do these things first, or I'm not ready to do that because I haven't worked long enough, or I don't have that experience. I haven't lived that yet. And I feel like there's so much of it that you kind of run into that it's like, how many times have you maybe stopped yourself from being truly authentic because you thought you weren't ready? And I know that can also come from whatever kind of, mental or emotional gymnastics that you also may be going through. Um, and so I feel like that's a whole nother kind of can of worms to look at. But I mean, even here I am kind of making an excuse when it comes to that of like, and instead of putting it on the shelf, maybe we need to bring it out, open the box and really kind of embrace it a little bit more head to head. Because I do feel like that's been kind of a default answer of mine of like, I'm not ready to do it yet. And maybe I just need to be braver. And so I feel like that kind of tied so much to authenticity. And I was trying to build other pieces because, again, I was trying not to like lay the blame at the foot of authenticity and trying to kind of pull in. No, I don't know who wrote it wasn't a quote per se. It was just someone that had it on like an Instagram meme. I would probably have to look it up. I feel like it was just kind of a saying. But I'll look at that in the meantime and see if I can come up with something. Um, so that's kind of what I'm embracing. And then it kind of tied into the authenticity mind map that we're going to talk about first, and then our rosebud thorn reflection, and then moving into those weekly setup pages. And I feel like it's going to be another continuation of like the weirdness. That was how I started my April month of just like embracing the weird. So we're still saying weird because somewhere thinks that's great. They love the weird. So like I said, we're going to start with that authenticity mind map. And so if you haven't set up your mind map yet, find a blank page. This is not printed in the journal. It is something that is unique to the weekly socials. And so it's a way that we can kind of further explore the theme by asking a couple different questions. Again, we're focusing on the 4 weeks. And as always, if you show up a little bit late or have to end up not being able to make a weekly social, we always include the previous weeks. And like I said, the quote, I was gonna say, keep the quote in mind of like, it's not because you're not ready, you just maybe need to be brave. Because this week 3, I was still in like vacation mode. But this one hurt. This one hurt. So week 1, we talked about personal authenticity. Week 2, we talked about authentic connections. Week 3, like I said, this one hurts. My first note was this is what keeps me up at night. And week 3 is vulnerability. And what would it mean for you to be vulnerably authentic? What fears arise from this idea, and how could facing them benefit you? How can embracing vulnerability nurture more authentic connections with those around you? Like I said, this one hits in all of the areas. And so really these were kind of the other versions or questions there. So the first 2 are kind of versions from that previous slide. But then I also added in was there a time that you kind of overcame or dropped the mask to be more authentic? I feel like that's a really good, I know, Monica, we're right there. I feel like this was also an opportunity to celebrate some of those when you actually you were brave, you put the vulnerabilities aside to be a little bit more authentically you. But then, like I said, I didn't want to just solely blame authenticity on my vulnerabilities. And so that's where I was like, does this relate to other themes? Especially if you can bring some of those into support, or maybe they're a barrier for authenticity. So that's some of the, dealing with confidence or optimism or, self-admiration, opportunities. And so that's where I was like, maybe if I can bring some of these other themes that we've looked at, within the past couple months, the past year, if you've been with Silk and Sonder for a while, but it's like, how can I pull from some of these things? How can I tap into the wonder and the joy and the spontaneity and some of that optimism to help me be a little bit more authentic? Because as I was telling Maya, I was like, this is going to open up all of the like kicking myself when I should have said something, when I should have done something, when I should have done something different. So I was like, I'm going to be like curled up, getting no sleep tonight, curled up, kind of shaking in all of my thoughts and feelings for the rest of the night. But I do think it is an important thing to kind of incorporate when we are dealing with authenticity. And so that's kind of again where I went down this. And it's obviously, I always tie it to the vulnerabilities are absolutely when it comes to super personal stuff. And I feel like that also leads to kind of trust, the establishing trust, the broken of trust. So that's where, again, I started to knit in all of these other themes and feelings and emotions and realizing that it really isn't just authenticity that's impacting the vulnerability. It is kind of all these other foundational blocks that I can at least acknowledge and then be brave to start adjusting and incorporating those. Um, but at the end of the day, this can be a little tricky. If you need to just kind of sit with it, write it down. That's what's great about these mind maps is because you can explore it all week. You can kind of get it when you need it. But I was like, man, this is, whew, it hurts. It hurts. But absolutely needs to be done. So I'm going to be a little bit braver and see what I can do with that. But if you want to share in the chat, kind of your thoughts around this, love to hear it. And again, maybe it's not sharing, what you actually wrote, but kind of, again, the thoughts and feelings and emotions around kind of what this spurs up. I'm going to put on some music and we'll see you soon. Thank you everybody for sharing. Like I said, I just found this one a little bit tricky, but as I kind of sat and thought about it a little bit more, it was like I didn't necessarily regret the times that I was authentically vulnerable. I definitely regretted and more of the times I wasn't. And then as I shared, it was like I know I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I know I'm not going to be liked by everyone. I get that. And I think again, it was just more of the controlling of I want you to at least come to that conclusion because of these traits and not what you think to be the perceived traits, which again is where I realized that the controlling nature, I think someone also pointed out like the people pleaser, is that it really wasn't just authentic. We don't get to lay blame solely on authentic and being authentic or not, realizing that it was kind of all these other pieces of, is it judgment? Is it the fact that you're like, well, I'm not going to necessarily get much out of that relationship anyway. So I feel like it becomes that kind of further exploration of it. And like I said, while initially I was thrown for a loop with the ask of it being vulnerable and that kind of thing. I appreciated the time that I can now spend with it and look at it from that perspective. And again, it's not going to be something I'm going to solve this week. It's not going to be something I'm probably going to solve this month. It is just another opportunity within these mind maps to kind of keep highlighting and then maybe again connecting some of those pieces together. So I know that now this kind of lives again. Gonna put it in a box, gonna put it on a shelf for a moment, not because I am lacking in confidence and bravery. It's just more of the I don't know what to do with this yet, but I maybe will uncover a few more things in the future or a little bit further exploration to see what I can really come up with, kind of affecting this. Because I feel like the moments where I'm truly authentically vulnerable, I feel like they're magic. It's almost like you get that sigh of relief, especially when it's just like, that inner circle, the circle of trust, so to speak. But I thought it was, whew, the mind maps, they just hit in the right spot at the right time, at least for me recently. So I appreciate the opportunity to sit and look at this as well as share with the Sonder fam. So now we're going to move into another reflection. This is going to be the Rosebud Thorn reflection on page 36 in your April journal, as we are continuing to kind of explore not only the theme, but also just the like highs and lows and everything in between of our previous week, because we can kind of carry some of that momentum into the next week as we set up our pages, or we can always say, thank you. This week has been great. I am done with all that I've learned from here and I am ready to move on. So again, it's a way to highlight the rose, the buds, and the thorns. So the roses, that is a highlight, something that went well, something that made you happy, made you smile, something that made you feel authentic. I feel like we can certainly go and embrace this particular theme this month, just to go a little bit into it. And then the bud is going to be an emerging opportunity, something you're looking forward to, something that is out there on the horizon that you haven't quite figured out. It's going to go one way or the other. Maybe you can kind of help cultivate it one way or the other since we're in our spring mode. So maybe get out the gardening tools, see if you can cultivate it into a rose. And then the thorn is going to be a challenge, something that didn't go well, something that was a roadblock, speed bump, all those things. And yes, definitely a glimmer when it comes to the highlights, all those things. And I just love the fact that you can kind of make the adjustments to the general idea, but we're here to kind of add and celebrate those roses, get excited about the buds, and then kind of acknowledge, provide some of that additional support when it comes to the thorns. For me this week, the rose, the highlight. A friend of mine is putting together her photography portfolio. So I went and did a photo shoot with her this morning. So I put on my pretty little red dress that twirls quite well. And so the top one is just kind of one of the preview photos there that she's already sent me. And it was one of those things like I haven't had anyone kind of just take my picture like that, honestly, since probably like high school or college graduation. But super fun, and it's going to be a certain vibe, certain moody, all those things. So it was really fun. Felt really special. The bud, an emerging opportunity. So this past week I traveled to a work conference and got to spend the conference with definitely someone who I would consider a mentor from Houston. I'm a big fan of his. I've learned a lot from him. And there is potentially an opportunity for us to collaborate, and I can help support him on a project. And I'm really looking forward to that just because I like him and his team. So being able to work with them again would be really awesome. And it would certainly get me through the rough spring that is currently like outlook for my work day to day stuff. And then Thorn, I feel like I'm a little behind on chores, but even as I was telling Maya, I feel like I'm just kind of anxious about it, but I don't really know why I'm behind on chores. And I'm trying to figure out what chores do I need to do to feel less behind because I'm kind of caught up on things. So it's just kind of taking up a little bit extra, honestly, space and energy in my mind and in my emotions that I want to try and solve it because it seems a little unnecessary at the moment and is kind of frustrating. So if you want to share in the chat your rosebud thorns, we would love to celebrate those with you, as well as again acknowledge some of those lower points in the week. I'm going to play a song and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And I think Jennifer definitely sums it up really well. Loved reading the roses so uninspiring and uplifting. And I agree. It's certainly one of those, especially the kind of returning socialers, as well as just feel like within the Sonder fam, we all get invested in each other's kind of lives, especially from week to week. So getting to again see just how you are living your life is always something worth celebrating. But love seeing all of the time spent with family, some accomplishment, but then on the thorn side, seeing kind of like 'tis the season of transitions, I feel like. Not only seeing just kind of some big decisions looming on next chapters that certainly will take their emotional and mental tolls on everybody. So sending extra strength for that. But then seeing everything from, work and job and professional potential transitions or thoughts of the transition there all the way down to kind of, again, those pesky chores that I always feel like I don't know. I feel like it's just again that seasonal shift. And all of a sudden those become readily more in my head because I feel like it's so associated with the spring cleaning and that kind of idea there. So again, just taking up a little too much time and energy and space that I would rather save for, hobbies, crafting, reading, focus a little bit more on those roses. But again, appreciate everyone sharing. But what's really, I think, nice about the rosebud thorn is just being able to spend a little bit of time acknowledging the type of week that you had so that you don't always focus on the negative or dwell on the negative or the things that didn't quite go right. And so again, whether you share it or not, the fact that you can write it down and again, acknowledge it there, I feel like, again, putting it out into the universe in some capacity just lightens the load a little bit. And even for those that are certainly carrying heavier loads, it's nice to just have it acknowledged sometimes that, someone else is thinking of it, someone's thinking of you as you go through it. And I just feel a little less alone when I'm in those situations. So thank you everybody for sharing. Now we're going to move into those weekly planning pages. So this is going to be page 40 and 41 in your April journal. Talk through the first page and then we'll combine that second page, the B side, as we go through it. And again, the way it'll work is I will provide the examples, talk through some of them, and then I'll go off camera, turn on the music. So if you ever need us to go back to sections, let us know. Other things you want to focus on, we are happy to help. And then as always, just the friendly reminder that I feel like I always like to frame this is if you get a little stuck or you get a little tricky with kind of how you want to approach this week, I always say zoom out, ask yourself, what do you need this week? Because sometimes what you need the pages exactly as written, exactly as designed, exactly as potentially intended. Or maybe what you need is something completely different. Maybe what you need is that consistency. So being able to ask yourself, what do you need? And then being authentic with what you need, manage those expectations appropriately as we embrace that theme. Because sometimes what you need is to not do particular sections. I know spring break is kind of amongst it. And as we move into the Easter holiday, maybe your habits and activities just adds a little bit more stress to it. And so maybe you just don't need to do those this week. Maybe you need to focus a little bit more on some of the other sections of the journal. Maybe you want to focus on being present. So the fact that you can ask yourself, what do you need? And so starting at the top of page 40 in the April journal this week, I want to feel, and I don't know what it is. This is going to be like a frog theme one, and I am not a frog person. I'm actually not a fan of amphibians or reptiles, but I loved this. Sometimes I'm a tad sad pole, sometimes I'm a bit bad pole. All the times I am a total rad pole. So I love that idea. It goes with the confidence that Jennifer is wanting to feel this time this week. And so I like to frame again this asking yourself, how do you want to feel this time next week? Or I know one of our other facilitators, Bailey, she will come back to this section last and then provide almost like the one thing, the summary of how, based on all of the other things that we put together of this is the summation of what I want my week to be. But I always like this because this is that intentional optimism where you can kind of take control of your week in that one moment. So when you're experiencing those rose, the buds, and the thorns of the week, and if you get a little tangled, a little lost, a little out of control, you can always come back to this because you want to feel 1% better. You want to start somewhere. You want to move forward. You want to be enough. You want to be happy. You want to feel less pressure, more peace. You want to feel like hugging yourself. You want to feel courage. You want to feel a ray of sunshine. I was like, I saw Gloria, so it's still there because I love the doodle. Maybe you want to be happy. Maybe you want to feel alive. And maybe again, it's a sticker. Maybe it's the picture of 1,000 words. So it's a sticker. It's a quote. It's a mantra. It becomes how you want to do this week. So I'm going to put a quick song on. And I would like to, if you want to share in the chat how you want to feel this time next week as we kind of frame the rest of the week around this. And we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. So now that we have essentially asked ourselves, how do we want to feel this time next week, we can now incorporate some of those tools that can help us kind of come back to this idea. So I'm going to combine the next two sections with the weekly major 3 goals and the weekly to-dos, because quite a few of our folks will kind of do these either in tandem or actually directly connect them. And so these are the things that can kind of help you feel the way you want to feel this time next week, or kind of help support how you want to feel. And so again, just because it says weekly major 3 goals, this could just be the 3 goals. It could be 2 goals. It could be 1 goal, and they don't even have to be major. They can be minor, and they don't necessarily have to be just the weekly. For me in particular, this particular section, these are always the mental and emotional reminders I have to give myself so that I can feel the way I want to feel this time next week. But another way to use this is categories. So maybe you want a professional goal, a mind goal, a body goal. Maybe it is just the 3 things you want to accomplish. Like I said, I'm a sucker for alliterations. So you want to have a creative, a capable, and a carefree goal. Or maybe you want to get excited about seasonal reads, or even just kind of spring shows. Maybe it is the one in the middle. I like the idea of make a plan to go back to school. They had one specific goal that they were focusing on, and then their weekly to-dos were supporting kind of that a little bit, just so it was like the one thing they wanted to focus on and prioritize for that week. Or maybe you want to have a different goal for each part of the day. The bottom left one is one of those that not only do they have the categories, but it's the mind, body, and soul goals, and they want to embrace each of those. You want to plan for your mind, doing something for your body, and finding peacefulness for the soul, and then directly connecting those to the to-dos that they have listed to support those categories. Quinn, I thought that was yours. I was pretty sure it was. And I loved it because I thought it was such a great focus. And sometimes that's what you need to really focus in on something specific. And then the bingo board component, you can kind of incorporate all those for the to-dos as a way to gamify kind of that part of it. And then maybe it's more you want to stop doing some things. So maybe it's the stop goals, or again, just kind of those general reminders with the choosing to live my life the way I want to. I do what I feel is right. I choose to be my whole self 100%. So maybe it is a little bit more on the mantra or affirmation side to help you feel the way you want to feel this time next week. And then as we move into the weekly to-dos, like I said, those can be hand in hand with the major three goals or the major goals, or these can be completely separate. And you can either approach them with the to-do list or a to-do list. For me in particular, this section changes a lot. Like I said, I'm not a frog person, but apparently this week is all about frogs. And so I change this one pretty often, and it's usually between a to-do list and the Eisenhower matrix. I definitely like to celebrate all the things that I have accomplished, but obviously it is not doing anything for my kind of chore anxiety. So I think I'm going to focus on the Eisenhower matrix this week to kind of narrow down and see, am I truly accomplishing everything on my to-do list? Maybe is there something that I'm missing? And if I can decide, delegate, or delete something. But because, again, I live alone, I never delete anything. I will delay it. So maybe that is one of those things. Yes, Kelly, you were exactly right. I did. And my maids will be here on Tuesday. And so I'm excited about that. So that's also why I'm a little perplexed with the like anxiety piece. So I think I'm just feel like I'm behind, but they're going to be here on Tuesday. I'm so excited. They're going to hopefully, make me feel a little bit better. And then you can also, again, categorize some of these things as well. Maybe it is just kind of a recategorization of your random to-do list with here are the things I need to call, here are the errands I need to do, the follow-up, the scheduling. Maybe you want to categorize it with the needs and the wants, or maybe your weekly to-dos are in a different section. And so your priority is to be curious, not critical, have some compassion, validate your feelings, treasure yourself. And maybe it's more of a to be, or again, those stickers really, really bring some smile and cheer, all those things. So whatever's going to make you feel a little bit better as you accomplish this. And then maybe you have some work to-dos, personal to-dos, and kind of combine them as well. So I'm going to give you some time to work on this, and let me know if you need to go back to a couple different slides. And I would certainly like to see, are you a categories person? Do these tend to change? Do they go hand in hand with your to-dos? Have you had your moment of delegation? Which, like I said, I have, and I think that's maybe where my anxiety is being a little bit, because I feel like I have to clean for the cleaners, ironically. So just like I said, in all the feels, but would certainly like to see what goals you're working on, what your to-do lists look like, and any inspiration you guys can provide. We'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Loved seeing some of the reframing suggestions, as well as, again, being a little bit more authentic with yourself of kind of what you need this week. Again, sometimes it is a to-do list and it's a very structured to-do list. Sometimes it's very structured goals. And sometimes it's, I just need to do something different. So the fact that you can be very flexible with these, I think is great. And at the same time, just because we're sitting here thinking this sounds like a good idea now, if come Wednesday or Thursday and it isn't quite working, you can always start over. You can erase it. You can cover it up. You can even rip it out of the journal in case you needed to do something different, or, learning has occurred and you need to do a slightly different approach next week. And so now we're going to be at the bottom section on page 40, which is the habits and activities. I feel like if you have come to a few of my socials recently, I am a creature of habits. So it's the same 3 habits. I want to move, I want to journal, and I want to read every single day, to the point of, and recently I have added to find the sun, and that is get outside, if it's a nice day, even as like, I've got longer days now. I have these really large windows, so I always take my break now during the work day when the sun is on the couch and I can sit and read in the sun. I even got some sun when I was at the conference because I found the sun. So I thought this was appropriate, is that I'm not being dramatic, but the sun being out has changed my life because I am a moving houseplant. I just need to be hydrated and I need to sit in the sun. But it's been really fun. I think it's, again, embracing this season, but also being present, trying to find some of those things and making kind of the intentional effort to do something like that. But just because you have these things listed, again, you can pull them from previous weeks. The momentum's there. You don't always need to come up with something new and different each week for this. And sometimes it's a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 structure. Sometimes it's not listing any goals. Sometimes it's having habits and activities that are only there for the work, the traditional weekdays versus the weekends. And sometimes it's I just need to be present. I have, spring break or some of those things. And so it's a sticker, or some of those kind of looser ideas. Be kind to yourself, treasure yourself, be authentic with yourself. And then I'm going to continue to bring this in, the 5 days to schedule every month. If you haven't scheduled one of these days, maybe this is the week to do it: an unplugged day, a self-care day, reset, or a learning day, or a fun day. And a lot of times you're already incorporating this into your kind of day-to-day and building those routines. So sometimes it's just nice to acknowledge that here. Again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to do something new or different. Sometimes it's just a space to acknowledge, to make sure that you're setting aside time for those priorities when it comes to hobbies, as well as just activities in general. Because again, we all have the same 24 hours each day. We just get to reprioritize how we spend them. And y'all know what's coming next. I was like the iconography of the bucket lists. So if you haven't included something, again, kind of fun on the fun day, or again, incorporating, like I said, the finding the sun is now another staple because I feel like it speaks to all the bucket lists. But again, these are great, especially with the weeks kind of coming up, a really opportunity to do that, as well as some self-care goals. And then I liked the ABCs of a happy life. Maybe you just need some friendly reminders there, that you unplugged, that you live simply, that you're inspired, that you're dreaming big, you're being content, you're helping each other, kind of all the fun, good, feel good things. Because I feel like that's the vibe I'm going. I got my sassy frogs, but I have that kind of like, a little bit, empathetic, sympathetic, just like wanting to be in all the nice, cozy, happy feels, as we transition to spring and all those fun things. So give you some time to work on the habits and activities, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And again, I know it might be a little early, but I certainly went through the astronomy phase when I was a kid. And so one of the meteor showers is coming up, and it's anywhere between the 15th through the 22nd, and you can see it in the northern hemisphere. The peak time should be the 21st through the 22nd overnight, but they have the window of anywhere between the 15th to the 26th. So I think always again, something excited to get for. So if you couldn't find a bud this week, maybe that can be your bud. But thank you everybody for sharing. I just love seeing all of the kind of spring things, but also kind of acknowledging the routines that we're already establishing. This doesn't have to be something new and different. You don't always have to come up with a new or different habit or activity. Just I have found a lot of just excitement and satisfaction in making sure that I'm setting aside realistically managing my expectations for the habits and activities that I want to continue to do that make me happy, that are being my authentic self, or even just embracing kind of still on the vitality kick a little bit. So now we're going to flip over to page 41, which is the B side. And so we just finished the A side, like the records. So again, those have all my favorites, all the standbys. And now these have some of the gems, which I always say are certainly things that I used, and I actually used it. I when I travel for work, I use the meal plan for scheduling what I'm going to wear and what I'm going to pack, because some of the airlines over here are very strict. So I got to be able to fit basically everything in a backpack and a small carry-on. So I always get really excited as like a really great planning tool. But sometimes you can also use the meal plan exactly as listed for the meal planning or the meal prepping, or even budgetary concerns or those type of things. Or you can do it in real time if you're tracking symptoms or one of those things. But again, maybe this is where you want to track your glimmers. I saw that someone mentioned that they do a haiku every day. You can certainly put that here, or embracing the daily doodles, or maybe this is where you want to put some of those journal reflection ideas, the priorities, even the affirmations. Um, Excuse me. And then maybe you want to do the ta-das there, or some of the habit stacking, or even the things that you need to do every single day to kind of close out your day, finish your day. That can be used for the meal plan. And then when we move into the mind body health plan, this can go hand in hand with the kind of scheduling something for the scheduling for the week. Ooh, you can either plan ahead, too many glitches. You can either plan ahead, or you can provide some inspiration in the real time of kind of how you took care of yourself this week. So again, maybe it's those alliterations to celebrate that particular day. Again, Nathania's in the crowd, and I love that this is what I feel, so this is what I need. It is such a powerful mental check-in, or just emotional check-in, or just a daily check-in. And especially if you want to kind of focus on being authentic, it's kind of that opportunity to almost do like the serious gut check. What do you need because of what you're feeling? I also now like starting incorporating, I've seen some of our folks shift to the digital version. So you're going to see some of those coordinating there. But again, sometimes it's just that acknowledge too. I think I saw Heather in the chat. This was hers there for the rest and recharge, celebrate the wins, remember the why, as well as the breathe. Again, more kind of bucket list ideas, kind of all those things. I got in a Jane Austen mode when I was down in Southampton. So that's kind of on my list. I may have a Jane Austen marathon this week. Why not? We'll just embrace all the seasonal feels. Maybe again, it's kind of celebrating some of those other days. Again, here's some spring reminders, or maybe things to stop worrying about in April, kind of being the anxiety type things. And then we got the shopping list that goes hand in hand with that meal plan, or you can repurpose it for those wonderful bingo boards, the seasonal bingo boards. Pick the theme, pick the ideas, and you can certainly make it there. And then maybe it's again the social check-ins, which we know can be important, especially with the seasonal changes, prayer lists, the to-be list, mini breaks at work, the glimmer bingo, we saw that there, or even maybe this is where you track kind of what you wear, or maybe using some of those stickers. So I'm going to give you some time to finish up on this page, or at least get some ideas, inspirations, and we'll see you after the song. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Don't worry, I'll go back to these slides. I always get caught up in the chat. And it's such a short song because we've reached the end. The very last section is the I am loving. I am still embracing the snail girl spring. That's going to be my vibe. And, one more frog for the road for you. But definitely snail girl spring, the eat your veggies, spend time in your sail, hydrate and take your time. So that's kind of, again, still my vibe. But would love to see in the chat if you want to share some of the things that you're loving. I also highly recommend working on that page, the currently page on 39. I'm a bookworm, so I love the beginning, the middle, and the end. So I do a check-in at the beginning of the month, the middle of the month, and the end of the month to kind of tell my story of what I accomplished in April. We also, as always, would love to continue the conversation in the app. Love to see your pages if you want to share them. Get great inspiration there. And obviously, we use them for the socials. Mayha is also hosting again another live demo on Thursday. You can sign up for that to kind of go through not only the coaching element, but some of the other features there. If you're interested, you can certainly check that out. And then as always, here is the songs that I played in my playlist, but I will provide that Spotify playlist there. And as always, I do save all of my playlists there. So if you're looking for something with the kind of theme and the vibe for about 30 minutes, a combination of kind of songs and instrumentals, you can certainly check those out. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. Can't believe it went by so quickly. You guys are going to have an amazing rest of your week. And if I don't see you between now and then, if you celebrate Easter, I hope you have a happy Easter. And certainly look forward to seeing you at a future social. So we started the song with the social with a kind of sad girl song, but we're going to end it with Letting It Go because I was feeling a little nostalgic. So you're going to get a little bit country music. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. Hope to see you again soon. Have a great rest of your day. See you soon. Bye.
Yeah, the sun always sets at the end of the day. Nobody wins every game they play. Your lucky star is already taken, and every close call leaves you shaking. Don't be afraid if you have to fold. Just count your blessings and hit the road. Let it go, let it ride. You couldn't fix it if you tried. It's a whole lot worse, holding it all inside. Let it go, set free. There's some things you aren't supposed to keep. Don't go crazy over what you can't control. Let it go. But it still feels broken, and your favorite guitar gets stolen when your back's up against the wall, and every step you take you